Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the RENNSPORT Community League here in Monza for round 2 of Season 6. And at the tempo of speed, we've seen a lot of action the last 2 days, because of course R1 has taken place with a doubleheader this week. And we completed by yet another race at Monza, but in a very different style, you could say. We have lots of drivers here today, basically a full grid, alongside good part of the title bid with that, I'd say, because whoever wins this race will bag a lot of points for the championship. And to get you through the evening, I'm of course not alone yet again, because I'm joined by Tim Ireland this time again.
Hello, I'm back. I had a week off.
A well-deserved one.
Yeah. Hello everyone on Twitch. How are you doing? I hope you've been enjoying the R1 races we've had. It should be very different. Different legs, different people, different number of cars. It's all different.
Indeed. To give you some facts for the evening, we have all car brands represented. We have lots of different colors, lots of different drivers, and the championship at the moment is looking quite tight after the first race in Jeddah, which was, let's say, eventful, because we have Ron Hood leading Dominic Ladler and Tony Thomas. Everything, or everyone, in the top 8 is in this race here today, alongside some of the people who haven't been with us in race 1, but in past community leagues were definitely ones of the contenders, such as the likes of Alizai and Enrico Bräuninger, who we see here in the Aston Martin.
Yeah, we've got a big field today with a lot of fast drivers. I am not Maximilian Dean. How dare you? So yeah, it's going to be a very different race. It's obviously at a very, very different track from Jeddah, but I think it's going to be a very different race. We've got a lot of fairly quick people taking part today, so it could be interesting to see what happens.
Hey, we also got a bit of a clash between two of the now bigger teams in RENNSPORT. Recently on Discord we introduced a bit of let's say, feature that you could run your own team. And well, two that immediately emerged from this are FDRT, the Faster Disaster Racing Team, and NGSRT, I'm sorry. I have to look it up, because I keep forgetting. Night Gaming Studios
Racing Team?
Yes. And they all have quite a number of drivers in here, one of them being Sven Gehlhöth, who I think we've seen before. And he is pretty fast. He already starts off with 46.9, leading the field. It could be very interesting with the dynamic of these twos in the Discord. If you don't want to miss some fun chatting action, definitely make sure to join it. But yeah, definitely
yes, Sven's a fairly big regular when it comes to the time trial challenges we do every week. He's usually fighting for the top spot there. He's pretty quick.
And he's definitely showing that here with the AMG. Another fast AMG in the hands of Catherine Daniels in NGSRT. So, different team, same car. And in the middle of them, it's Dominic Ladler, 4-time champion. And yeah, he is without a team. Same goes for Julian Chicol, who just put his car into 3rd. But I'm sure he's looking very racy, and he wants to take a good chunk of points here today. But Monza is very chaotic.
Yeah. It has a reputation in sim racing. Sometimes it's a well-deserved reputation. So there are a lot of big straights with a lot of big braking zones at the end of it. So dive bombing is a thing.
Turn 1 will definitely be very interesting to watch. So far, we had a lot of luck in the community leagues. It all went through fairly cleanly. But I'm I think I can say that we won't see 4 whites as we've seen yesterday and 2 days ago. But maybe that's a bit for the better with a field double the size of R1. But we also got a couple of new faces, Samuel Teles being one of them, and immediately putting the car into 6th in front of Jay Fernandez, who's also new. So, couple of surprises here for this race, just like last time around. But of course, some proven talent, such as Cesco Munuera. Didn't have the most luck last time around, but showed he's quick. And today we'll hope to again impress people with his racecraft.
Yeah, our races on here, a bit less of the out-and-out sprint you'll see in the R1 races. They are 45 minutes long, so still a sprint race in the GT3 sense, but not as much of a sprint race as 9 laps.
Yeah, it is, and one big factor, of course, being damage. If you damage your car, especially at Monza, this could really cost you on the straights. But right now in quali, what we see is that we have 2 very, very fast drivers in those AMGs currently on the front row. We have Dominic Lada and Julian Chico. Enrico Buono just put his Aston Martin into 6th. So it is very spread between the manufacturers, while Rondon Hood now goes to 3rd. But it is, especially in the mid-pack, very tight between the cars.
Yeah, as you'd expect, the mid-pack tends to be where it gets the most racy and competitive, just from the nature of bell curves. But it's looking pretty tight up the front as well. There's not too much time between those first 5 drivers. And yeah, as you said, the mid-pack is very, very close together. And it is Monza, so it is Draft City, which makes it even closer.
There's about 1 minute 20 left in this qualifying session. So if you're on your lap, you may be able to complete it. Dennis Kotzer probably won't be able to complete yet another lap. Currently in 12th in that Katowice Audi. Let's see what Dominic Lada can do. The first 2 sectors seem quite alright. Could be enough to beat Rowan and Hood to the last points paying position in qualifying. Of course, the top 3 in this session receive some juicy points. But I think he just went a bit wide and has also aborted the lap. So it will be 4th for him. Julian Chico not able to improve. But it's looking very good for Sven Gehlhut and FDRT.
And for the AMGs.
Indeed. I mean, we don't have manufacturer standings. It would maybe be interesting, but in this case we do not have that. But for Rowan, it would also be another point. And I think if you have a good challenge being put up by Dominic Lally, you really need those points. And I think we won't really see much changes.
It means there's going to be a bigger points haul because the points is affected by the size of the field.
Exactly. Of course, we have a couple more drivers than in Jeddah last time around. So the points you can back here today are quite considerably higher. Not that it is a huge amount, but it is definitely noticeable. Especially when we have championships like last time, where we had 3 drivers nearly tied on points at the end of the season. For the podium steps. But we see a lot of cars on the grid, a lot of colors, as we said previously. Sven Gehlhut will lead them into turn 1, or will it be Alizaya? We will find out in just a moment's time. And we go green, and it has been a good start for the front row. I think Dominic Lala lost a bit out to Rowan and Hood. We go pretty close to each other in the mid-pack. And Rowan and Hood with a very good start. Bit of contact behind, but it seems to go quite well. Julian Chico trying his luck on the inside, and Rowan and Hood immediately passed Alizai. I don't see much drama in the back as well. think Enrico Bräuniger lost a lot of positions. But apart from that, a very clean start to the race.
Yeah, it was always good to see people making it through turn 1 without too much drama. There was a little bit of bumping, as you'd expected, 24 cars going down to essentially 1 lane, but well done, drivers. Well done.
Julian Chico trying to pass. Oh, and there's one car on the background. I'm not sure that might have been Fernandez. Julian Chico also losing the position to Catherine here. Moving up a spot. But up front, Sven Gerald immediately building a bit of a gap to the cars behind. And Ronan Hood under pressure from Alizai, who will be looking to take back that second position. Oh, we nearly go 3 wide into Ascari. That's Chico against Cesco Munuera. And behind them it's Samuel Tillis. So indeed it was Fernandez going round, exiting the second chicane. Oh, and Alizaya lost position to Dominic Ladler exiting Ascari. So now Dominic Ladler up into the podium position. This early into the race doesn't really mean much. Oh, but there's contact and Dominic Ladler is round. Just being ran over by Alizaya. Trying to get it turned in Parabolica. That's not a place where you want to be stationary. And that lost him a lot of time, and this man will be very elated to see that with Ronan Hood able to build his championship lead if he can stay in this position.
Yeah, it's a good bit of misfortune for Rowan there. Of course, while him and Alizahir were fighting, that gave Sven Gerhold a lot of chance to just make a bunch of space. He's now 2 seconds clear at the front of the field.
Meanwhile, I see on your screen that Piotr Zadaiba is coming into the pits with heavy damage. Not a good start to the race for him and Michael G as well.
Yeah, they both had some incidents on the first lap, so they've had to pop in to get their cars fixed up.
Jonas Kurzer and Radoslav Pionkic struggling a bit with the second chicane. A bit of more cars in the chicane behind. Also the second Aston of Luis Wachinger, who's with us here again. Catherine Daniels also seems to be able to pull a bit away from Julian Chicot, which will definitely help her to close up to the cars in front. But with 2 FDRT drivers leading this race, it's looking good for them. But Alizaya, I think you quite know when you see that name behind you, he's not backing off. And he's not very impressed by the fact. David Baker also made his way up into 9th. I think he started a bit further down. Cesco Munuera in the slipstream. Oh, and Julian Chico went down Catherine Daniels for 4th. See if Cesco Munuera can hold on or get past Tony Thomas. No, he can't quite yet. In the background, that's Dominic Lala trying to get past Kring Shi. Also, it wouldn't be the first time that Ronan Hood finds himself fighting an AMG at Monza.
No, that is very true. You should be well used to what the car is capable of by now. No excuses.
Last time it was Tim Schroeder, but I think you can argue that Tim Schroeder is a bit more aggressive. Catherine Daniels down the inside, coming up to Ascari. I think she can't quite clear Julian Chico going into the turn, but the inside is a bit preferred and just made it in front. Good move there to get back into 4th.
Yeah, it was tight up getting past, but it was a well done move, and Julian Chico immediately fighting back on the straight. Catherine Daniels taking the defensive line on the inside of Parabolica.
And she goes back in front again. I think these two will have some fun over the evening. David Baker getting closer and closer to Gerardo Berecke. And I think he also had the better run out of Parabolica. Maybe able to get alongside. And there's contact on the straight. Fairly hard defending there by Gerardo Berecke, but he made it work.
Yeah, I don't think David Baker was fully committed to the move this early in the race. There's still quite a way to go, so he's got plenty of overtaking opportunities to come.
And again, fighting into the second chicane between the two of them. And that was very close to losing the car there for David Baker. Nice car control. But they're losing contact to the cars in front. To Cesco Monreal and Tony Thomas.
Yeah, fighting like this does slow you down. You're obviously not taking the optimal line, having to be a bit defensive. And losing speed coming into the big straights at Monza is really kind of like a cumulative effect. Once you've lost a little bit, you lose speed all the way down the straight.
Meanwhile, Dominik Ladler working his way up back into the top 12. He's now at the back of Dennis Kurzer, getting past OG Stan, who didn't really choose to put up a fight there. Oh, and David Baker sending it down the inside, or at least sending a dummy. And Alizaya for the attack against Rondon Hurt. Run very late on the brakes, as we are used to by him. Defending the position for now.
Outbreaking one of the Porsches. Outbreaking the Porsches is very difficult to do.
But definitely sets the tone for the commitment of Alizaya. And Sven Gild. Oh, and Catherine Daniels nearly losing the car. The BMW behind that's not for position. That is Piotr Zadalby, who's a lap down after his pit stop. And Sven Gild up front is running away with it. A 46.61 for the last lap. Solid.
That is
second faster
pretty
than
quick.
He's basically just treating it as a time trial session. Oh, and Dominik Ladler getting past both Dennis Kurzer and Radoslav Pironkiewicz in basically one part of the track. Up into P10. And David Baker also passed Gerardo Berecke for 8th. But let's get back to the fight for the lead.
The previous times I have seen Sven racing with us and not just doing time trials, if he gets at the front and gets a bit of clean air, he just goes into time trial mode essentially and just does fastest lap after fastest lap. He seems to get a bit more worried when it comes to cars being around him, but if you give him some free space at the front of the field, he will just go.
Well, he certainly doesn't have to worry about cars because Alizai and Ronin Hood are locked into a fight that's costing them a lot of time. And there's contact between the two of them. Both somehow keep it out of the wall. I think... Was it a bit egregious from Zaya? Was it a bit too far pushed from Ronin Hood? Alizai definitely doesn't seem to be happy.
Nope.
I'm sure this ruins a chat after the race between the two, but for now, they stay in the same order. Just going there with some front right damage. Still in pursuit of Tony Thomas. Who's going a bit wide, exiting the first Lesmo, and I think that is an easy position for Cesco, but he checks up too early and into the barriers for the Spaniard. But I think that you can't really blame Tony for this one. was just...
No, I don't think. I think it's two cars going for the same space there, more than anything.
I mean, he wasn't quite clear. It wasn't as with what we've seen previously from Catherine Daniels. Still in the race though, so there's time to make a position like Dominic Lala does, who now finds himself in 9th place. And again, in slipstream, Alizaya. Against the other beta liveried Porsche. Not quite close enough. What are the two Audis gonna do? David Baker to the inside. Tony Thomas not really putting up a defense. Maybe trying it around the outside, but now he's concealing the position behind. It's Dominic Lala on the outside of Bereke. Now being pushed onto the curb, but making it work. Up into 8th he goes with the left side indicator on.
Bereke did leave plenty of space there at the exit of the first chicane, so fair play to him on that. He didn't just squeeze Dominic Ladler off track, which we might have seen happen quite a bit on the R1.
Oh, but going right over the chicane, that will warrant a track cut. You can't do that once or twice, but you shouldn't do it too often. Alizaya on the inside into Ascari against Ronin Hurd. He's not backing up. Contact and into the wall. If you go with two cars into that turn, oh, and heavy damage on the car of Alizaya, you can see it crabbing down the straight.
Yeah, too wide into Ascari is always something I very much try to avoid personally.
I mean, you pretty much know only one car's gonna make it out.
Yeah.
It's almost a guarantee
Ali
at
is
this point.
A little bit left hand down now, and you can see him dropping into the pits. Try and get his car fixed up.
That will cost him a lot. Catherine Daniels with that. Up into 4th. Sven Göret 11.5 seconds in the lead. Alizaya and Ronald lost a solid, I'd say, 5 seconds in the last 3 laps with their fight.
Yeah, true.
Oh,
yeah, their lap time, the last few lap times were pretty off pace as far as what they're normally doing is concerned.
Oh, and a bit of a pile-up, and David Baker right in the middle of it. I think that was the Porsche of Cesco Monera and the BMW of Piotr Zadaibe who came together there. And David Baker right back behind Gerardo Bereke. I think that's the last thing he would have wanted to happen. Dominic Lala used that chaos to get up into 6th. Only 2 seconds behind Tommy Thomas. OG Stan also up into 11th. And it's another NGSRT against FDRT situation. And we are only 15 minutes into this race. There's still 2/3 of the race left to go. David Baker again in slipstream. And he's trying it into Parabolica already. Side by side, but the momentum is with Bereke on the outside. Slight squeeze onto the grass, but they exited side by side, and I think this is a good chance for David Baker. Again, a bit of contact on the straight. But David Baker moves up into 7th.
Got some good overspeed there, as long as he can hold it into the braking zone.
Bereke very strong on the brakes. Oh, and squeezed David Baker a bit there. I'm not sure he will be really appreciative of that. And Dennis Kurzer is also reeling them in because they just keep on fighting. again, contact into the second chicane. Of course, contacts also won't incident limits. So usually we don't really see issues with that, but if these two continue like that, they will face some penalties.
And Dennis Kurtzer is getting involved now, so it's becoming a three-way fight, which means David Baker's going to have to be worrying about what's going on behind him as well as in front of him.
I think that was the audio of Michael G, who was having some issues. And Dennis Kurtzer with good speed through Ascari. He's right with the two. He's capitalized on other people's mistake and fighting in Jeddah. He may be able to do it again. David Baker again looking to the inside into Parabolica. And forcing Bereka a bit wide. And I think Dennis Kurtzer is able to slip through as well.
Oh. That was some scary looking weaving going on there.
And now into turn 1. Can Dennis Kurtzer make 2 positions in basically 2 turns? He's now on the inside. If he can get a good enough exit. We exit nearly 3 wide. Does he have the speed?
And he seems to have a little bit of a better exit, and although he's got the longer line around the outside, so they're still side by side together.
And they are still side by side. It's not stopping. Into Lesmo 1. And I think Dennis Kurtzer this time has the momentum to complete the pass. And in between him and Bereka slots in David Baker for 8th now. But what a move by Dennis Kurtzer. He saw the chance. Baker pushed Bereka wide. It's almost like the team games we've seen in R1 yesterday. Just that these guys are not in
really
teams.
Yeah, there was some really good close racing going on there, and I think pretty fair all round. The amount of side by side between Dennis Kurtzer and David Baker there was impressive.
And that without much contact as well. But Dennis Kurtzer, what a journey he has in this race so far. Started from below P12 and now up into P7. 7 seconds to Tony Thomas. He now has to watch out for David Baker. 5/10 into turn 1. Yeah, that could be a bit close, but seems like he had a good run through Parabolica to fend it off.
Very cool machinery.
It's something we missed during the duel, basically, was the fighting behind, because OG Stan and Radoslav Pionkiewicz switched position, and now OG Stan is on the back of Gerardo Bereka. So he's trying to make up some positions. And he has the pace to do so. Again, a very good exit for the diamond liveried Porsche. In front of him, an Iron Dames Porsche, which you can of course win by watching 3 hours of R1. Next week we will have round 8. So make sure to not miss it. It's one of the last chances to get that Iron Dames livery.
Yeah, it's the last round of the regular season.
Oh, and again, contact through Sky, but this time both make it through. Oh, and Dennis Kurtzer wasn't able to really get away from David Baker. They both got away from Bereka, but down the inside for David Baker. But I think it lost him just a lot of momentum. And maybe the chance to attack into turn 1, even though he's still close to that Katowice Audi. Up front, it's Catherine Daniels and Dominic Ladler for P4. And again, what a recovery
Yeah.
drive for Dominik Ladler.
Dominik Ladler's just had his head down, just doing fairly quick laps, lap after lap. His best lap is 48.2, which not blistering compared to the front of the field, but he's just been a machine just doing it lap after lap.
Meanwhile, chain reaction behind Otistan getting past the other barricade, but then losing the car on the exit with a bit of contact. So, and David Baker, it was a bit of a weird move, but it made it work. And Dominik Ladler up into 4th in front of Catherine Daniels, but she has been very strong going into Ascari, and she is in a good position.
Dominik Ladler still indicating.
He's doing that a lot, I feel like. Oh, and Daniels lost the car exiting Ascari and a heavy hit into the wall.
Oh, that was a big spearing move into the wall there. That's not going to be happy about that.
Yeah, and the car's crabbing a lot. And that will be a safe visit to the pits. And out of the top 10. This is how quickly it can go. But a very strong showing so far. Up until then. Sven Gerhardt getting up to some traffic. The 21 car of Alex Bovey is getting out of the way. 18 seconds in the lead. Ronin Hood having about a 7-second lead to Julian Checot.
Yeah, and then there's 18 seconds back to Dominik Ladler, who's now, thanks to that unfortunate crash with Catherine Daniels. Then 6 seconds to Tony Thomas, 7 seconds to David Baker. And then the gaps kind of goes up a little bit more. There's a second between Baker and Kurtzer, 2 seconds between Kurtzer and Brescia.
Yeah, this now after 23 minutes, which is about halfway through the race, opening up a bit. You see some people still coming up the ranks and running up into 13th after dropping down a lot. Dennis Kurz, of course, now back in 8th behind David Baker. Quinn Shi is up into 10th. Last time we talked about him, it was being passed by Dominik Ladler, I think about 10-15 minutes ago in P13, so... But now under pressure from OG Stan, who is also trying to make up some time after the spin. And again, a side-by-side into Ascari. And he's backing out of it this time. But now in Slipstream, maybe yet another chance. Looking into Parabolica down the inside. I'm not sure if I would do... We see it a lot in this race. We see a lot of people doing it, but you lose a lot of momentum by doing it. I think one of the better ways would be to go straight a bit and just use the momentum off of Parabolica. But the drivers seem to go for different strategies here.
Yeah, for sure. Parabolica is an interesting corner in that you can take so many different lines around it.
Seems like Tim was cut off there a bit.
Sorry.
I apologize. Of us. There's so far only 2 retirements as well, and I mean, we are at Monza, we are at the Temple of Speed. We've seen some quite hefty crashes. But still, a lot of people staying out there. You see it on the track map on the top right of your screen. But this man is leading the pack, and that by a lot. Sven Gerhardt. basically in control of this race from the start on. He really capitalized, I mean, apart from his pace, which is outstanding, he capitalized on the fights Ronda and Hood had very early on with Alizai and Julian Chico.
Yeah, it's very rarely been into the 47s this race. He's mainly been in the 46s. His last lap was a 46.98. His best lap is still a 46.6. But he's been hovering around that kind of high 46 area the majority of the laps. And nobody else has even got close to doing a 46.
If we think about the championship, of course we are still very early in the season. It's only round 2, although it is a very populated race. What we basically can see is the fact that Sven Gerhard would of course get a lot of points for this. Currently also, I think, holding the fastest lap time of the race. But it would take away from Ruan's total. Dominic Lala, who came up back the order, would not lose too much to Ruan anymore. And in general, I think it looks quite good to get some new contenders in from the last race, which missed out on.
Yeah, it's probably, for us in the championship, running the championship, it's a best case scenario that somebody new comes in and wins this race and gets all the big points, because it does help other people who couldn't take part in round 1 kind of get into contention. And like you said, he's taking a big chunk of points away from Rowan right now. Rightly so. He's 20 seconds ahead. But Rowan will still get a decent heft amount of points because of the amount of drivers that took part today. It's not going to be insubstantial, that's for sure.
We will definitely see at the end of the season that this race will make quite the difference. Meanwhile, for the 2 Audis, Dennis Kurzer and David Baker, they are now 3 seconds apart from each other, so David Baker really found a lot of pace, I'd say. But still,
yeah,
P7.
And I've been practicing quite a lot, and he's been increasing his pace bit by bit. He's definitely getting to the quick side, and I think we all know that he's one of the controller players, so definitely showing that you can be up there towards the sharp end of the field with a controller, that's for sure.
Jay Fernandez making his way up into P12 as well. I mean, that wasn't for position. It was again the BMW Prototype. Really unlucky start, but he's showing that he would have been very, very capable in this race. Even with the blue flags having quite a good pace throughout. But Fernandez, of course, being spun around at this very corner in the first lap, that cost him quite dearly.
There is always a certain kind of lottery RNG situation when it comes to Monza Turn 1 in any race. Sometimes bad things just happen and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, it's part of racing, right? I mean, if everything was predictable, then we wouldn't need to drive the races. Then you could just say, okay, Sven Gerhard won because he had the fastest race lap, but that's not what happens. That's not what makes it interesting. And even though he has a 20-second lead, there's still 15 minutes to go, and he still has cars to go by, because the traffic in front of him is a bit higher now.
Yeah, and as he passes traffic that is racing for position amongst themselves, although he's got a 20-second lead, so he's got plenty of time to sit back and wait for a good opportunity to do things. You sometimes don't feel that when you're driving. And if the traffic in front of him is racing for position, he has to respect that and try not to interfere with their race as much as he doesn't want them to interfere with his.
Exactly. I mean, with a 22-second cushion, you can take it fairly easy. And with drivers like Prototype there, you know you usually get the space you need. But still, every lapping maneuver will cost you time. It will also, of course, cost the drivers behind some time, because they will have to get past the very same traffic. But still, there's always a certain risk you carry.
One of the drivers who's coming up to overtake right now is Ali Zahir, who had that unfortunate crash and pitting situation. But he is actively racing against Romain Decanter, so... And we know that Ali can be fairly aggressive, and that means that's something that Sven will have to take into account. Romain Decanter also actively racing with Fernandez as well. So there's 3 cars very close together, all racing for position. And as the leader, even with the lead he's got, he needs to somehow find a way through that without causing himself any problems.
In the slipstream and bike seems to go Ali Zahir. They are now level, going into Parabolica. Yet another move into Parabolica. And now
Romain Decanter not wanting to be part of that.
It might sometimes make your life a bit easier.
Of course, you can get a bit of a slipstream down the start-finish straight, which can give you a bit of time back. If you lost a bit of time overtaking people, they can do you a solid and give you it back again in the slipstream.
For Ali Zahir, this could be a good chance, though, because we know he's pretty quick as well in that Mercedes. Now being behind Sven Gehlhut, with a pretty repaired car at least, could use him to go by with the blue flags. I mean, the car in front of him, that is Fernandez, but if he makes way for Gehlhut to get past under the blue flag, he could just slip with through. If he can go Gehlhut's pace for some laps.
Yeah, we've all been in traffic and seen those people who sneak behind an ambulance or a police car when they've got their lights on. And it's essentially the same thing.
I think it just worked because Ali Zahir was led by Fernandez. I think he confused the blue flags there for yet another car. I mean, it's not often that you are on the same lap with Ali Zahir if you are a lap down, but in this case you are. And with that, Ali Zahir into 11th. Dale Baker also slowly makes his way up to Tony Thomas, who's still in 5th. It's pretty much the same thing as in Jeddah last time around. He's just keeping it consistent. He's not on pace with the cars in front or even behind. But he just kept it out of trouble. He kept his nose clean. Basically rose up the ranks because of it. Didn't defend or overly defend like we've seen with Ruan and Ali Zahir. To just keep his position. And he still is in 5th.
It seems to have pulled some kind of bizarre magic to be able to do this. But yeah, like you said, he's off the pace of the people in front of him. He's off the pace of a bunch of people behind him. But he somehow does it. Tony Thomas, let us know your secret.
Not sure if there really is a secret to it. It's just driving a very clever way. It's something that we usually said about Dominik Ladler, who so far this season is having a bit of a weird season. He's always involved in some incident that not necessarily is his own fault, just to catch back up and drive up the ladder. He's back up into P4 at this stage, but in Jeddah he also got past Tony Thomas, who didn't really put up a fight. He chose to not fight, and in Jeddah Tony Thomas finished 3rd. And
maybe Dominic just got bored of winning, so he's trying a new tactic.
I hope that's the case. But with those results, I just put in provisional results for this race. Tony Thomas would still be 3rd in the standings, only 6 points behind Dominik Ladler. So it definitely seems to work for him. Oh, and OG stands facing the wrong direction in Parabolica. And he has a lot of cars coming his way. And that is very painful because he will drop down the order a lot.
I think he was debating trying to spin it round before they came. But of course, if you get it wrong, that's very painful.
And now Alizai on the back of Krystall 4P9. Coming out of the slipstream into turn 1. Again, the Porsche just slightly later on the brakes, but Alizai takes the position.
Yeah, Cringy didn't seem to fight too hard for that one. I think he realised the move was done, and rather than risk any kind of contact, it's better to just carry on with your own race.
Salvaging what's possible, I'd say, for Alizai. 1.2 seconds, meanwhile, between the two Audis 4P5. With 10 minutes, not even quite 10 minutes left to go. But we still have fights for position up and down the grid, and every position you gain is, I think, very important, of course, for the overall championship, but also in this race. Once you clear a car on Monza, you can really put your hammer down, put the pace down. But with the slipstream, it both, of course, has an up and a downside. So you have to really pick where you get by. And we've seen that a lot in this race, Parabolica especially.
Yeah, there's some fairly obvious overtaking places. Big straights, big braking zones. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. It's what comes after the overtaking position that is important. If it's another big straight, you can just as easily immediately lose that position again.
And we've seen that countless times. I think the prime example being David Baker and Gerardo Berreca quite a few times this race. They, I think, swap places the most out of any driver pairing. But every time David Baker seemed to just send it down the inside of Parabolica. At some point it worked, but Berreca was always able to just sneak by and slipstream again, coming down to turn 1. But let's see what he will do against another Audi, because he is slowly getting into slipstream range. 6/10 now. Depending on how he plays and how well they both exit the Parabolica. This could be very interesting. Don't think he will be close enough, quiet enough this time. Some yellow flags for Luis Wachinger in the first sector.
Just to kind of put the boot in a little bit more, as Sven Gierhard has just done the fastest lap of the race, doing a 1:46.5.
Baker has a good run, but he's choosing to just stay on the outside of Coragrande, which is very interesting to me. But doesn't go on the defense here, not close enough. He knows that himself. And I don't think he wants to fall back to Dennis Kurz, so he has to really pick where to fight Tony Thomas. Otherwise he will end up just like Ron Deneuve and Alizai earlier to lose out 5 to 10 seconds if they lock into a side-by-side for about half a lap.
Yeah, he hasn't got the time to kind of drop back and catch back up again, so he really wants to make sure that he picks a good solid overtaking place and decides to do it into a Scari.
Oh, loses the car on the brakes, somehow avoids any contact with Tony Thomas.
That was a butt-clenching moment.
But where this, and you see the Katowice Audi just behind closing in very fast with that. You know, the fight for P10 is also heating up with Fernandez, Decanter. Krystall and Fernandez. Decanter being just a bit behind there. To the inside goes Fernandez. And again, side by side into a sky. We've seen that so many times and it goes wrong again, but they somehow keep it straight. It's the exact same thing that Ronin Hood and Alizaya tried, but there it ended in the wall, and these two, while making contact, somehow keep it pointed into the right direction.
Oh. Drivers going side by side into a Scari with 5 minutes to go. Challenge impossible. Stop it. Stop doing it.
And trying to basically do the up and under into Parabolica is also something that we haven't seen today, but Fernandez is trying everything to get into that 10th spot, but Quincy is just putting up a solid defense. He wants to keep that position. Braking later into turn 1.
Oh, but yeah.
Oh, but okay, that was maybe a bit
sketchy.
Sketchy is, I think, a good way to put it, but Fernandez just accelerated out of the turn like Qingxi wasn't. It was a nice save from Qingxi to point it back into the right direction, but not sure. I think some people will have a look at that.
Yeah. It was not the way you'd want to be making an overtake after this logger race, that's for sure.
David Baker lost out about 4/10 after his save, though, like 4 further 10th after Ascari. He left Ascari with about 1.1 seconds to Tony Thomas. It's up to 1.3 to 1.4 seconds. We only have 2.5 minutes left on the clock. This could be very tight for him if he wants to get a move on.
Yeah, his last lap was a 10th quicker than Tony Thomas's. So not Tony doing a bit of across the curbs.
But both made a mistake there because David Baker locked the brakes. I'm not sure what ABS setting he is on, but it doesn't seem to be too high because he locked the front right going into turn 1, sending him quite straight. So it might have saved Tony Thomas as well, who with that mistake might have lost more time. But yeah, Dennis Kutz is really liking that because he's within 2 seconds now of David Baker.
And Sven is around there, so I think there will be another lap to go by the time Sven gets around to the finish line.
Yeah, definitely. But the question is, with that one lap, I don't think it will be enough for David Baker unless Tony Thomas makes a bigger mistake here. The top 4 is pretty set in their positions.
Ali Zahir had a big old gap to Gerardo Brescia, and it's down to 4.5 seconds, which still sounds like a lot, but I think in the last 8 minutes or so, it's gone down by about 10 seconds. So he's still going to be pushing to get another overtake in, but it's not out of the realm of possibility.
I'm not quite sure, but I think Alizaya might be the second fastest car in this race. He was quicker than Ronin Hood, especially in the opening phases of this race. But
yes, I believe he's. If I look at the fastest lap times, yeah, Ali Zahir's fastest lap is a 47.3. Ronin Hood is a 47.6. So he is second fastest.
We are on the final lap of the race, though. And Sven Gilhood, with 30 seconds to his teammate Ronin Hood, is looking very good to take the victory here today.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just thinking, like, last time at Monza, we also had a Dutchman making a surprise debut, you could say, and being very good with it. Back then, Roel Verhagen, he wasn't a new name to us, but it was the first time he drove in RCL, I think, and he made a very, very good first start. And today we have another Dutchman making a very good start at Monza.
Yeah, just coming up to overtake a very sad-looking V8 Vantage.
That is Louis Wachinger, but he's still holding
Yeah.
on in this race. Yossi only got one more DNF to this race in the form of Samuel Teles. So out of the 24 cars that started, 21 survived the Temple of Speed, and the one driver coming out on top is Sven Gehlhut. His first start in the Community Leagues and his first victory. Congratulations to him.
Definitely a dominant performance there from Sven. Nobody could get close to his pace, to be honest. And once he got off the front, it was just lap after lap after lap.
Quite a few shake-ups further down the order in terms of position. Ronan Hood will come home to finish second. I think he can be happy with that. This time a bit less controversial than last time around, to put it blindly. Julian Chico rounding out the podium. And Dominic Ladler, what a recovery drive once again by him. I mean, I think he ended up in P16 or 17 after that contact with Alizaya.
I think so, yeah, something like that. But it's been a fantastic drive back from him, getting all the way up to fourth.
And it seems like Tony Thomas will be able to defend fifth from David Baker and Dennis Kurzer.
Yeah, David Baker put on a valiant effort there to catch back up again, but just not quite having the time.
And that was the last finisher as well. It was a very interesting. It was, I think, less chaos than Jeddah in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I would have expected a bit different from this track specifically. But I think overall, a lot of drivers can be very happy with their performances. Or what do you think about it?
No, I agree. Even if they maybe aren't so happy with their finishing positions for some people, I think they can be happy with the performance they put on and how they performed personally in their own car. Fantastic recovery drive from. Oh man, my brain's just completely failed. Dominic Ladler. Like he obviously not going to be overly excited about fourth, but the recovery drive that he did in itself, I think he can be definitely well pleased with. And there's going to be a big haul of points for a bunch of people there, with the amount of drivers we had starting, 24 drivers, which is our maximum in a server. So there's going to be big points bonuses for a bunch of people up and down the standings, and I think it's a pretty exciting start to the season with 4 rounds still remaining. I think it'll catapult a bunch of people into contention that otherwise haven't been there.
Yeah, next week. No, not next week. Next week, you will, of course, have R1 action. We will drive the Nordschleife and a RENNSPORT community event. So, again, a trip header. But in 2 weeks, we will go to Daytona. And Daytona always has proven to be very interesting. If last season's Daytona race taught us anything, it was that it can be a lot more chaotic than you may anticipate it. But yeah, I think it could also give some chances to other people again. Maybe we will see the likes of Tim Schroeder back on track. Kimi Hapler had a very good shot at Jeddah until he came together with Rondon Hood. So yeah, before we do that, let's take a look at the standings. And those look like this. we have Rowan Den Hood. Actually, miss a person on there. I will just quickly fix that. But Rowan Den Hood leading Dominic Lala by now 11 points. And that is quite a bit, but it definitely isn't impossible to catch that up.
No, for sure. It's not an insurmountable amount of points, that's for sure. And it all really depends as well on the numbers we get. If we keep getting good numbers like we did today, then people get more points, so it's easier to close gaps up. So there is a little bit of that to play into it. But yeah, we have some good fights up and down the field there. David Baker coming in at 6, which is a good result for him. Tony Thomas keeping his 3rd place, like you said, just from essentially keeping out of trouble.
And it was a clean sweep for Sven Gilhut, who jumps up into 4th in the standings, getting the maximum amount of points he could have gotten here today. And I think it's also quite interesting to have the defending champion against the 4-time champion. Maybe at Daytona, he won't be this unlucky, Dominic Ladler. Last time he was in contact with Rowan Den Hood and Tim Schroeder, not necessarily to his own fault, but yeah, it may be still in their minds. But he's been strong at Daytona before, but so did Rowan. And when Sven Gilhut should decide to stick around, or if Max Dean decides to get back to it, we are in for a very interesting season.
Yeah, it really changes the kind of dynamic at the top of the points table as we get new people who are competing at that kind of top level. It takes away some of the big points hauls, which means that the gaps between the people who are currently at the top of the leaderboard kind of shrink a little bit.
But we will see more in 2 weeks' time. Until then, have a great weekend, and we see you in 1 week for R1, for the Nordschleife League, and for the community events. What the next community event will be, you will see it in just a moment's time. Until then, have a great time, and goodbye.
Goodbye.